Hi again, everybody. Maybe you attended my previous session as well. I'm Elisabella Gamba, leading product marketing for Twilio Voice and our marketplace customers. And now I'm going to talk to you about on-demand services. So in the previous talk, we talked about listing services, marketplaces. Now we're going on the other side, on-demand services. These kind of services are growing exponentially, at least here in San Francisco. If you go to work, you take an Uber or Lyft. If you look for an apartment, you book that with Airbnb. And we heard from Airbnb before. If you need to fix something at home, maybe you call Porch or TaskRabbit. So these on-demand services are really changing the way we consume services today. But the reason why I'm so fascinated about that is the ability to control online a transaction that typically requires an offline set of actions, right? And also the ability to gain predictability from something that typically is completely undeterministic. Like, let me give you the example when I go and buy some groceries. I may struggle to find parking. I may struggle to find the specific ingredient I wanted for my new recipe. I may find a long line at the cashier. I may get stuck in traffic on my way back home. So something that should take a couple of hours could expand very easily to take the whole afternoon. On the other side, with those apps, it's amazing because I order my grocery and as fast as 15 minutes after, all my grocery comes to my kitchen, including all the strange ingredients I was looking for. Or if I'm at work, I don't need to worry about planning my lunches because I know that by the time I press that order button in that app, I will get my favorite food from my favorite restaurant from the other side of the city delivered right after 10 minutes on my desk. So it's really amazing. It sounds really like magic. And I'm curious to know how much big of an operational nightmare that may be behind the scenes. And also, what are the technologies? What are the innovations that are making this possible? So today, I'm super excited to have here two of the people that are spoiling me every day. And they're my personal heroes. So you really need to help me in welcoming Max Mullen from Instacart. Max Mullen is the co-founder of Instacart, and Andy Fang, co-founder and CTO of DoorDash. All right. So can you please explain what exactly Instacart and DoorDash do and give a quick snapshot to the audience?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So Instacart is, if you haven't used it, it's an online grocery delivery service. We deliver groceries from your favorite local stores like Whole Foods in as little as an hour. And the way that we actually accomplish that is by having a fleet of trained and seasoned personal shoppers that will go to the store on your behalf, deal with all of the problems that you have sometimes encountered when shopping, and select your items and then deliver them directly to your door. And we can get into some of the complexities there and how we actually get it done, but we have become very, very efficient at scale at doing this, and we think we're actually better grocery shoppers than you are, or than I am.
For sure, better than me.
All right. I'm Andy. I work at DoorDash, and for those of you who don't know, DoorDash is an on-demand delivery company. So we deliver from local merchants in your area, and we get it delivered to you within 45 minutes. Primarily, a lot of what we focus on right now is on restaurant delivery. That's something that we have gone very good at, and something that we want to continue and getting better at over the next couple months and years. Similarly, with Instacart, we have kind of tweaked and streamlined a lot of the operations around doing restaurant delivery. Some of our fastest deliveries, as you can see on the screen, was in 15 minutes. And building out the technologies to make that happen have been really interesting, and look forward to talking to you all more about kind of how it works under the hood.
Great. So can you give me your take on what an on-demand marketplace is? Because we read a lot about all this definition about sharing economy, marketplaces, listing services. What is your definition for an on-demand service?
Yeah, I can start. So I think an on-demand marketplace is really one where you have to balance requests from customers, ordering from whether it's grocery stores or restaurants, basically a set of merchants, and making those requests happen as soon as possible. And as opposed to traditional marketplaces that you may see out there, with on-demand marketplaces, the operational complexity is actually a level more complicated than what has traditionally happened in the past, because there are a lot of unknown variables you have to account for. For example, where your demand's coming from, what the merchant is going to look like in terms of maybe how busy the merchant is in terms of preparing orders, in terms of how busy their staff is in terms of tables they have to serve. And also even things like weather, traffic, those are all things that can get in the way of making a delivery happen seamlessly. And when you're servicing these things in 45 minutes or less, being able to account for these variables and predicting them and accounting for them when they happen to you real time is a very tricky problem.
Do you have the same take?
Yeah, we have very similar models. I think you're making it even sound simpler than it actually is, because there's that other layer, which is not only do we have customers, and in our case shoppers, in your case drivers, right? But there's two parts of the supply equation. There's where the goods are, right, where the groceries are at the Whole Foods store, and then there's in our case there's kind of a complicated process of selecting those groceries, and doing that well at scale is one of our biggest competitive advantages. And so finding the right people to do that, how we train them, how we incent them, and how we build a community around that is also a really important part of our marketplace that I think is not usually understood by people.
So you mentioned balancing supply and demand. We call it liquidity sometimes. Is this your biggest challenge?
I would say balancing supply and demand is definitely a very interesting challenge. And I think particularly when you're talking about things on demand. For example, with restaurant delivery, you have very drastic peaks. So if I'm an individual restaurant owner and I want to staff my own delivery service, I don't know if I need 10 drivers on the road, or sometimes an hour later I might only need 2, right? And so it's very difficult for an individual business owner to be able to manage that in a way that's appropriate for their demand. And with a service like DoorDash, where we can pool all that demand together, we essentially reduce the variance there in terms of how the peaks and the valleys look. But it's obviously still challenging to fulfill those in a real-time manner. And so that's something that we are continuously looking at and continually trying to improve on in terms of making sure that we can have enough liquidity in our marketplace to make sure that we can fulfill orders as quickly as we can.
Yes, it's a big challenge. It's the biggest challenge when you're first starting out. And I remember when we first started Instacart, it was like summer of 2012 or a little bit afterwards. And we had spent all this work trying to get people to order and know about us, right? Just building awareness. And Sundays were and still are our busiest days. And one Sunday it was also raining. When it rains, people want their groceries delivered. They don't want to go out. And so this rainy Sunday was like the first time when we had way more orders come in than we could possibly think about delivering. Wow. And we had never stopped to build a button that turns off the ability to order, because why would you do that, right? Spending all this time trying to get people to order. So we pushed some code to fix that problem, and then we went out and we delivered all the orders, and even though some of them were late, we got them all delivered. And then the next day, we basically started our logistics team where we have a very complicated capacity system that helps even out those peaks and valleys, and then also helps customers understand when we can actually fulfill our 1 hour promise and when they have to wait maybe a little bit longer.
That's a great story, because I actually have a very similar story where we first started. We were in Palo Alto, and the first football game of the season at Stanford, it was raining that same day, and we ran into almost exactly the same problem you had, where we were just flooded to the point where even when we got everyone in the office was empty for like 2 or 3 hours. Even with everyone in the company helping out, we were still underwater. So that was definitely a very troubling, but good learning experience for us in terms of the importance of making sure we can balance those things well.
Wow, it sounds very challenging. And I wonder, do you develop anything in-house to try to predict demand and try to balance supply and demand? Do you do any like data science, or can you tell us a bit more about that?
Do we do any data science? I'm thoroughly underqualified to explain the intricacies of what we do, but we do have a team of 20 data scientists and engineers who all they do is this problem all day long. And it's a very complicated problem. You're kind of never done solving it. And it's different in every city because of traffic and weather and demand patterns and you name it.
Did you find that demand patterns are recurrent or they're completely unpredictable? For example, Uber find out that their accelerant, like moment when they can sell the most, were like due to weather, restaurants, weekend, and in those moments they could even become viral, right? Because the service is so much in demand. Do you have the same patterns?
There are patterns, and there are days of week and times of day that are always busy, and then there are things that surprise us. So the first time we had like a New Year's Day, we weren't sure, like, is everyone going to order or is no one going to order? And same thing with Thanksgiving. It turns out people really, really, really want to order on Thanksgiving, and nobody orders on New Year's Day. They're sleeping in or whatever they're doing. And so New Year's Day, I think, was a Monday this year that I'm talking about, which is usually one of our busier days, and then like nobody ordered. So, and that's a problem for us, right? Because in some cases we do things to seed the market with supply on those busy days, and so. So having year-over-year data has become really important for us in our demand predictions.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say that we do similar things in terms of modeling our demand. As Max said, there are some holidays, and some we don't even know about sometimes because maybe there's holidays in different countries or something that we're just not aware of. But like you said, the year-on-year comparisons become very helpful very quickly. I will say that it's also, like you said too, that there's challenges with modeling things on a per city basis as well. There are events that come up ad hoc. Like if there's a marathon, like Beta Breakers happening, someone's got to figure out how to make that work, right? And so we're now at the point where we're in markets that are across the nation and outside the United States. So making sure we're on top of all these local events that are happening, making sure we can count for exceptions well and gracefully. That's definitely something that we've had to learn to do well in order to be an operationally excellent company.
Have you guys seen what it looks like at SpaceX when they launch a rocket and there's all these people behind computers with like a big screen and there's like a map of the United States? We have one of those in our office with the weather and everything going on across the whole country, because a marathon in Boston or like when the Pope came and visited, you could watch the Pope like be in cities and screw up traffic and have our deliveries be late over here and then late over there. And it's I'm sure you have a team like that does the same thing.
We do.
It's so interesting. So basically, both of you have like 3 steps to deliver the service to your end customer. You have the restaurant or the grocery. You have the person who does the shopping and then deliver it. Is it the same person or 2 different persons, right? Sometimes it's the same person when they deliver at my home. I recognize
Depends.
it. Because this guy typically is very upset with me because I'm very picky, and then it's the same guy who's delivering the grocery. And I say, okay, I found everything that you asked for. So I noticed this change. Sometimes you use the same delivery guy as the shopper guy. But anyway, so we have the restaurant, and we have the grocery, we have the delivery guy, and then is the customer. And I wonder how, so since you're giving your best, let's say, SLA within 15 minutes, I mean, best case. But if we do our math, it's like 5 minutes to get the food delivery and another 10 minutes to get it like shopped. How is this possible? And how do you manage to coordinate all these steps? Because if the shopper waits for the guys to come and pick up the food, or if the restaurant is not ready when the delivery guy comes, then you will delay the whole chain, right?
Yeah. So in talking about deliveries that are within 1 hour and sometimes less than half an hour, there's like very delicate balance of a series of events that have to happen for deliveries to be that fast. So for one, you're placing an order that we know we can fulfill within an hour, and we know that in real time, and we don't offer you that option if we can't do it. So then you've placed this 1 hour order, and let's take Whole Foods for instance. There are about 5 Whole Foods in San Francisco that we work out of, and so there's likely somebody just finishing an order for someone else the moment your order comes in, and we know that, and we assign them that order specifically because we know that they're going to be able to take it very quickly. So it could be 1 minute or 2 minutes between when you place your order and when somebody's picking an item off the shelf. Obviously that wouldn't be possible without Twilio, because we send text messages to them which notify them that they need to start. And we have done things to optimize that time between when they get that message and when they actually start.
Really?
Oh yeah, and we know how long it takes in seconds for every shopper, in-store shopper to notify, to acknowledge an order, to actually pick the first item, and then their average speed per item. And these are metrics that we share with them and that we share with the company because they're critical to our success, right?
Right.
Efficiency equals economic viability in our business.
Interesting. So basically you have a list of shoppers that might become available soon, and your system picks the first one and sends a text notification.
I wish it were that simple. It's much, much more complicated, but we pick a shopper that is in a unique position in the city in relation to the delivery address, in relation to the items you've ordered, in relation to the retailer you've chosen, that can most efficiently and most quickly deliver your order while not affecting anyone else's order negatively. And that plan that decides who fulfills which orders runs like almost every minute to optimize that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like those optimization algorithms that we were used to study at university. It sounds like really the implementation of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of operations research involved that you apply to these kinds of problems. I think a story we had from back in the day is we were actually working with a professor at Stanford who was on the operations research department. And the kinds of problems they're used to solving it's kind of like, how do I schedule delivery of airplane parts to a big area? And they have like 1 to 2 days or 6 to 12 hours to make that happen. But if I told you your dinner was going to get here in 6 to 12 hours, I don't think anyone would use our service. And so I think there's kind of like I referred to earlier, there's a lot that goes on when you're dealing with things in real time, where you have to monitor things well, you have to be able to utilize that data and take action upon it immediately. And using online algorithms that actually in previous use cases actually weren't needed. And I think that's part of the really interesting part of some of the operational challenges we work on, because we're kind of exploring the frontier of operations research in a sense, which is, to me, it's actually been very exciting to work on those.
Super exciting and super, super interesting. So to recap, so you have restaurants, grocery, I guess you do partnership with that first step, and this is, I guess, is one of your competitive advantage. Then you need to secure as many shoppers or delivery people as you are forecasting you will need, and then you need to attract demand. So you have found your formula to attract supply and demand to make this whole machine work. What happens when you expand to a new city? Is this like a completely repeatable formula, or any story is different?
Yeah, I can jump in there first. Just talking about what it takes to onboard people onto our system. I think in order to scale that well, I think we leverage platforms like Twilio to be able to actually do a lot of this onboarding virtually. And if we can, thinking about the value of someone on our platform as a Dasher, it provides people love working with us because of the flexible work, and they can work on their own time. And even just signing up for our service, if we can make that as easy as possible for them, that empowers them that much more. A lot of these people who work on our platform, they just want to do it on the side. Or a lot of people are students who want to work, when they don't have class. And when they hear that they can sign up for a service like this easily, and thanks to platforms like Twilio, we're able to make that an easy process for them. That's a lot of that's really empowered us to be able to scale quickly in a lot of these markets.
Can you sign up over text message?
There are ways we communicate through text message. I think there are ways you can go through part of the flow through SMS, but a lot of it is either on your phone or whether it's through SMS or through the app on a mobile device. But I think having that mixture has been really helpful for us to access different people who are looking to sign up and work for us.
So are you using different communication channels, like SMS, I guess in-app messaging?
And email, yeah.
Email, voice? I know
Sure.
because I'm calling my shopper many times.
Usually, yeah, definitely voice. Well, voice for number privacy, right? For double-sided protection of the customer and the shopper.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information that people give, you have to make sure that you're protecting their personal information, whether it's their email address or phone number. And Twilio actually makes it really easy to, like you said, kind of shield the phone number, whether it's protecting it from customers, making sure customers feel safe, as well as when customers are interacting with our dashers, we actually mask those numbers so that the dasher doesn't have access to your personal phone number as a customer, and vice versa, actually, as a dasher.
Same here, but when we started out from a privacy perspective, but now that you are involved in all of the calls and text messages, yes. Right? If you call customer service, they will see that you just placed an order, that you had a 4-minute and 30-second long call with the shopper, and then they'll see your text message exchange, and that lets them provide you better service.
Yes.
And in fact, because of Twilio, when you call, we have your number pulls up your order automatically, and so all that magic just happens.
Plus the chat as well.
Right.
The chat that you have on your website.
Yes.
So I think a very cool feature that you are able to synchronize and align text messages with the online chat on your website.
Right. You can chat with your shopper via the app, via the website, over SMS. And if you respond to a notification, it jumps you into the chat. And then if you open another platform, we stop messaging you over SMS because that would be annoying.
It's very advanced. So since we have 5 minutes left, I wanted to ask you some final questions and then maybe open the floor for a discussion if we have some time. So as a founder of 2 highly growing companies, what is your biggest challenge to grow that business? What is the worry that keeps you up at night? And on the other side, what are your goals? Where are you striving to?
Well, being a co-founder of a company means you wear a lot of hats, and one of the things I think a lot about, and one of the things that sometimes keeps me up at night is how do we attract the most amazing talent, and how do we make sure that the people that work for Instacart are extremely happy and productive, and one of the best ways to sort of set those expectations and kind of mirror how people work and communicate is through the company's values. And we've actually learned a lot from Twilio's values, because you guys have some really interesting values, and they were set in a really interesting way, and the CEO has talked about that, and there's some articles online about it if you want to check those out. And as a company that has grown from 3 to 14 to 100 to 300 plus employees over 4 years, the values and the way you treat each other and the way you work together become very, very important. And we are actually in the process of taking another look at our values to make sure they're the right ones for us as we grow.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point around. I think the culture you set as a company, whether it's through values or through other means, I think if you don't have an explicit culture, there's an implicit one. And I think that's something you actually want to be very intentional about. And as a founder, over the past 3 years for DoorDash, it's been very interesting to kind of evolve the company. Where, the beginning, it's interesting what the problems are at different stages of the company. Like when we were first starting, we actually weren't called DoorDash, we were called PaloAltoDelivery.com. And the most important thing...
Why wasn't that a good name?
we decided it wasn't good.
Well, if you want to expand, then maybe it's not the best.
We did it for SEO
Great
purposes.
SEO, though, I was gonna say.
Yeah. But I mean, at that time, who cares if you can automatically dispatch people if you're doing like 5 orders a day? I mean, what matters most is, can you actually deliver those orders? And so for us, the most important thing at that point was delivering the orders and learning what the problems were. And So we did the first couple hundred deliveries ourselves, and that was very insightful for us. But as you continue to scale out, as Max was saying, you wear different hats, and over time, different things become important. And a lot of what becomes important as you're actually building out a company is the people who are in the company. And whether, talking about culture, whether it's talking about how do you structure the organization, I think a lot of things around setting goals. If you can set the right goals, then you have talented people, they will figure out the right solutions. And I think a lot of it is figuring out how do you align the talented people you have on your team to do the best things for the company. And that's a challenge that constantly evolves, and it's different on different teams. Salespeople are very different than engineers, different than designers, things like that. So definitely a handful, more than a handful to manage.
It's also interesting. I don't know if you've seen this same thing, Andy, but we have, we had the first 10 or 20 people that worked at Instacart. Then we had about, I don't know, I'm making up the number, but 60 to 80 more people, and they sort of start to form rings around the original culture, right? And it expands and it changes.
Yeah.
And then when you get above about 100, 150 people, the newer people don't usually always have the direct experiences with the reason why your culture is the way it is.
Right.
So codifying it with values is important, but even more important is then using those values when you do hiring, because you will not be personally involved in every hire that the company makes, and so you got to make sure there's a framework to make sure that all the incoming employees share your values.
Yeah, totally. We experienced something very similar to that. Yeah.
I think it's very important. I really like what you said. Like, if you don't create an explicit culture, an implicit one that is out of your control will come up. It's very insightful. So thanks a lot. And we are already over time, but if you want to ask a couple of questions, we can allow that since we have the break after.
Thank you. There was a company called Webvan in the 90s.
Never heard of it.
So I'm sure you researched them. Can you describe where they went wrong? Or is it just the times that they were in?
Webvan, so big grocery company in the 1999 and 2000 era. I wasn't around really to use it, or I was around, but I was very young. And what I have been told that they did wrong was that they overexpanded too quickly, and frankly, they just didn't listen to their customers. And some of their investors are now our investors and are helping us avoid those same mistakes. And they also had a much different model than our model. Their model was like vertically integrated, and they had a lot of CapEx costs involved in that. And with ours, we work with this grocery stores where the inventory already is, right? So we avoid a lot of those problems.
If I heard you correctly, I think you're asking about our take on on-demand workforces.
Yeah, just where you see that headed, your philosophy on it,
Yeah.
where you may have gone wrong in the past, where you see it going.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the important thing to think about is what do these people who work here, what do they want? And for us, unequivocally, they value the flexibility. And that's something that, had we not had the flexibility, majority, if not all of the people on their platform as Dashers would not want to work for us. So I think that's something that they really value. And in terms of how the future shapes out, as long as we can keep that in mind and we can make sure that's something that is retained, I think the Dashers will be very, I think they'll continue to be pleased with the working solution there.
Thank you very much. I learned a lot. I was very curious to know what was happening behind the scenes, and I really learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.